like to call this meeting to order, and if we could all stand to pledge allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Vince, take it away.
Thank you. If you don't have your Chromebook, I'll be happy to sit next to you with a copy of it. Tonight we're going to be going over some departmental budgets. I've been working on the budget. Today I worked with Dr. Fogarty. We've been working on the special ed component. We'll be presenting that next Tuesday as part of our regular board meeting. So we might not go in the exact order that I have listed on the agenda. Mr. Lukaseski can't be here tonight, and Mr. Moyer is going to be presenting next week because the boys won over the weekend and they're playing, I think, in Chester tonight. So he's there at that game. Tonight we've got Dr. Corey, Dr. Schenker, and Allison Dodd from Ulster BOCES. They're going to talk a little bit about BOCES, and as always in the past, if we have any questions about BOCES, we will defer to them for any support and questions that we might have regarding BOCES. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Corey or Dr. Schenker or Allison, whoever wants to come on up and talk about the services that Ulster BOCES offers to us.
It's on a Chromebook. Where is it?
Thank you, and as always, you know that we're talking about the COSER budget or the program budget as opposed to the admin budget, which is separate. Basically, each district chooses to participate in whatever COSERs. We have about 126 different service offerings at Ulster BOCES. Some of them are programmatic, some of them are student-based. So for instance, career technical education is a single one. But within our special ed program, we have multiple COSERs. In addition, in professional development through our instructional services department, we have a number of COSERs as well. And I don't know how you want to go through each of the COSERs, or if you have questions. This year, in doing our pricing, we priced most of our COSERs at no more than a 2% price increase. A majority of them had 0% price increases, but I would say well over 90% were 2% or less in terms of unit price increases. We do have an expanded special ed offering in Ulster BOCES for the 2021 school year. I can ask Dr. Schenker to come up. He could talk mostly about he oversees both of our special ed programming as well as our instructional services program. So if he wants to go over that, he could certainly do that.
And I think really the overview will be out again next week.
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday with some student reps who are really going to kind of be the show from our shared students, Allenville students, really talking about their experience both at career and tech and some of our special ed programs. So I don't want to go too much into the overview of that because the building principals will be here as well. But overall, we have seen a tremendous increase in the needs for special ed programming, and so a lot of super exciting growth and program development. We're really working collaboratively, myself, the building principals, Dr. Corey, Allison, on minimizing the need to transport districts out of county. Our goal is when there is a special ed meeting, whether it be at the elementary level, middle school, or high school, it is a tough conversation for CSE chairs to explain to a parent that they need to make a recommendation for a program outside of district. It's even a harder conversation to say not only are they going to have to go out of district, but we're going to have to look at Dutchess County or Orange Ulster. And so our goal is to create appropriate, meaningful, rigorous, enriching, exciting programs right here in Ulster County. And so you'll hear next week the principals talk about the growth in elementary programming, our K-8 programming, both for students who have behaviors that manifest in kind of a management needs fashion, as well as autism and Asperger's and spectrum, and a significant increase in our offerings for students who need significant psychiatric support. One of the growth areas was around our, what we call TTP program. It's a therapeutic transitional program that's a partnership with Astor. And as we see, unfortunately, the need for this type of programming in the county, students who have a significant life event, maybe they're hospitalized, and rather than them show up on the doorsteps, and a situation happens over the weekend and they show up on a high school doorstep and a school scrambling to figure out how we're going to provide the needed support for this student, we offer a 5-week transitional program that's coupled with Astor, in-depth psychiatric counseling support, group, individual, giving us kind of that respite to work with your high school team to figure out how do we help this student reclaim dignity and enter back into a learning space to be successful if it's Ellenville and if another placement is needed. Again, giving us all that kind of breathing time to make sure we can meet with families, clinicians, and figure out what's going to be the best approach for that youngster. So that's super, super exciting. We are super excited that our P-TECH program is going to be housed at SUNY Ulster, and also excited about the news here in Ellenville. And we're just really thrilled to partner around what that can and should look like right here in Ellenville. So instructional services, that we do probably about 95% of the professional development in the county, and that looks like embedded work, that looks like a math coach or somebody around technology at a high school working with a building principal, at a middle school, elementary, really, and coupled with working with Angela around your goals around teaching and learning, and then implementing a plan with an embedded coach, really providing that day-to-day support with teachers around literacy, around technology use, et cetera. And then we continue to bring kind of robust speakers and presentations to our center in Ulster-Bocie. Ulster-Bocie's in New Paltz, and again, the idea around that is a lot of these folks who are working with High Tech High, Stanford Design School, Flip Learning, large folks who are handling literacy. The cost for a district to bring that in as a singleton is really expensive, and so the idea is bringing them to a centralized place and kind of sharing that cost burden across all 8 districts and giving you all access to that. So a little bit about where we're going, and next week we'll kind of dive more into the nuances of what Career Tech is, special ed, and our other programs.
Thank you very much.
And I think our instructional services team, really next year when we're talking about the focus areas, one of the enrollment areas that literally every one of the programs that we offer this year that's filled up and has wait lists was on social emotional learning. And so we're going to be doing a lot of work on that for next year, as well as building off we're bringing in John Hattie, who's an international speaker, writer, researcher on visible learning. We'll be doing a lot of work with visible learning next year, which I know some of the program teams have already taken advantage of here in Ellenville. So we're excited about that kind of work. We've started to do some work outside of Ulster County in an attempt to drive down our costs, because if we generate revenue from outside the county, that money flows into the COSER, which ultimately then gets refunded to you because it's not anticipated revenue, it's unanticipated revenue. And so, for instance, we're sponsoring a workshop with John Hattie that's open to the tri-state area. We have as many people from outside of New York State coming to that program as from inside of New York State, and any revenue that's generated for us will actually flow into that COSER, which will generate a refund for each local district. My goal is to get as much work outside as well as piggybacking on the work that we do inside, so that the cost of participating in our professional development programs for our 8 component districts becomes 0. That's the goal. It's not going to happen next year, but we're slowly but surely making headway towards that goal.
Very good. Any questions? Do we have any questions for Dr. Corey? Are we going to see you next week too?
Yep.
Great.
And the highlight is not listening to me talk next week. As Jonah said, we'll bring students from our programs that are Ellenville students from our programs, and they actually get the floor longer than we do. The principals will talk, but they will actually talk about their experiences in the various programs, and you get to talk to your own kids about what it's like to be an Ellenville student going into any one of our programs. That was a suggestion from our board because our board has had that experience of program leaders coming to our board meetings, and then they turned to me and said, could you take this and bring it back to our districts? And I don't impose on your board meetings, but when I brought it up at the superintendent's table, everybody thought it was a great idea. And so this year we've brought our students out to the meetings, and they're enthusiastic about talking about their experiences. So it's really a good thing.
I'm very much looking forward to it. Really. I don't think we've ever done that before.
Never done it. Nope.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a great idea. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Any other questions? Anybody?
We are excited to just piggyback on Jonah. You come on up. I'm thrilled about the PTech grant. I think it's a game changer for any community, and especially Lisa and her team here. We work with them in the development of the grant. We're always pleasantly surprised when we get the grant. I wish we had a full year of planning. Unfortunately,
I think the waterfront had something to do with it.
That's right. That's right. But and we've met with the team, and I know this is going to be a success, and I'm as much invested in the success of this program as anybody. And I know Lisa and I have talked frequently about it, and I said we're going to be there together, even though it's going to be an Ellenville program. We're going to make sure that the first year goes well, because it's important that first year, sets the tone for all of the succeeding years. Our first class are presently second-year college students, so they've been in our program for 6 years. So we've made some mistakes and we've had lots of successes, but we can help point the direction and hold hands with the Ellenville staff to make sure that the program is successful. So we're thrilled about it.
John?
Yes, I'm excited about the PTech because we had one particular parent that asked about it and asked us to try and pursue it, and I'm happy that we got it. Do we have any preliminary numbers exactly on how many kids might be in that program for us?
The grant was written for the first year. Each year it's a cohort of about 20 students. It could be a few more, a few less, depending upon what the process brings us. So today, Mr. Pabon and Mrs. White and Mrs. Urbina Medina have been, with the help of BOCES, have put together a plan that'll go into your packet. It shows the steps that we're taking to meet with the steering committee, the applications for our students. Hopefully we'll have more than 20 apply, and the criteria, and we're really excited about it. But 20 to 22, I think, is the number to start. So by the end of the fourth year, we should have 80 to 90 students in an academy, which might lead us to create other academies within the school. So
And we'll have time to get that process done to get kids in for the next school year?
it's going to be tight, but from what I'm seeing, yeah,
Good. Thank you.
it'll be done.
Yes. Yep.
Anyone else? Well, we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you. Good to see you all again. Thanks.
So what I've done after our last budget workshop is on the agenda is I've tied it to where it is on board docs. So I will reference, for example, I'll bring up Mr. Aponte, our Director of Technology, first, and he is board docs on the agenda for tonight's meeting, 2.2. So that will help you navigate right in board docs to get to 2.2, and you'll actually see his presentation. And then while his data is up there, what I will do is, after he's done, I'll talk briefly about Mr. Lukaseski's department. He doesn't have a lot of changes. I'll have Mr. L., who's in the back right now. He'll talk about a couple of the equipment items, but for the most part, their budget hasn't changed much. Moses?
Hi, Mr. Ponte, welcome.
Good evening, thank you. Thank you for your opportunity to present my budget to you. This year, we're going to be running with a 4% decrease to the total operational budget for technology. This is coming at a decrease of nearly 25.7 rather 15.8 decrease in our hardware that we needed to purchase this year due to not needing servers, which we replaced last year. There are some line items that you may notice that are a significant increase to our software budget. That is the Lightspeed items. The Lightspeed is our web filter. They're changing the way that is being actually purchased now. We no longer need to purchase a hardware component, so that is actually going to be increased in the yearly cost of that. Also inclusive of that is a new software component which we would like to start utilizing next year. It is called Classroom. What this does is it gives our teachers the ability of being able to see all of their devices in their classroom sets from their remote console, lock the devices down, and do other things of that nature to keep the classes unfocused. And finally, the last item that we have, which is an increase this year, is our Microsoft Campus Agreement. What this allows us to do is have carte blanche access to all Microsoft products when they come out as soon as they're released. This will allow the district to stay up to date with all of the latest and greatest software from Microsoft, inclusive of all patches, and gives us access to the enterprise software, which gives us more finite control over our systems. Any questions?
Do we have any questions? Mr. Aponte, can you just give me an idea, because you know I'm not too savvy with this. How do you decide on software? Just in general, how does that work?
Well, it's a lot of it comes from collaboration at EdTech meetings that we deal with not only Ulster County schools, but with Orange Ulster schools. A lot of it comes from researching on K-12 educational websites and other infrastructure items that are available to us to be able to use as resources for researching. But most of it usually comes from recommendations of colleagues.
And where's the decision made to go forward with software? You know, who makes that final decision? Is that a principal?
Well, when it comes to operational hardware, operational software for control suites for technology, inevitably I will usually have that discussion with Mr. Napoli, Central Administration, on the products that we're interested in pursuing. But if it's anything related to instructional technology, usually at that point we'll leave it up to the teachers to give examples. The teachers will always give me recommendations of software that they're interested in purchasing for the next year, and I try to tie that into the budget as well.
But the principals definitely have input, as well as the teachers.
Okay, thanks. Do we have any more questions for Mr. Ponte?
No?
I guess you're good to go. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
So one thing you will notice, if you look at lines 12 through 15, due to ESSA reporting and transparency reporting that we have to do, well, we've begun breaking out certain budget items by building. So that's why you see a big decrease in line 12, but it's actually spread out among lines 13, 14, and 15. And Mr. Buckler, if you could just come over, I'll bring it up on the screen. If you want to go down to lines 32, 33, and 34 on the same budget that Mr. Aponte just talked about, Alan can talk about what those strings are.
Hi, everybody. So the main thing I can explain on Mr. Lukaseski's behalf is the line 32, 33, the portable codec package, transmitter, receiver. So when we do live broadcasts, whether that's from the gymnasium, the auditorium, Blueberry Festival in town, from Shadowland Theater, events from outside, any location pretty much. Right now we're using a piece of equipment which dates back to 2006, and that was a refurbished item which my predecessor was able to help us buy, and that item can only use analog phone lines, which are also fax lines. So that's great when we go to a location that has those lines. If ever we go somewhere that only has a digital phone line or internet connection but no phone lines for us to use, we're kind of stuck. We're left scrambling. So that's what those two pieces of equipment are. One is the transmitter, which is a unit which plugs your headphones and your microphones in to bring on location, and then the rack is the receiver that goes in the studio. That's what decodes the signal to put through onto WELV. And so yeah, so essentially it's to replace and update the current item we have, which is 2006, 14 years old. And that was a refurbished like floor model as well. So that's the main big budget item on the TV budget. Any questions on that item or any other items?
Is everyone good? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So the district website, where it's hosted, is it School Messenger? school messenger, that is actually through the BOCES budget, and I'll present that next week. It'll be one of the hundreds of line items that I present with the Ulster BOCES budget. So now we'll go to 2.3, elementary school. Ms. I.
Is that coming up?
Moses?
They're not coming up.
Excuse me, Vince, we're having a hard time. Ours
Yeah.
isn't loading.
We aren't
There,
seeing any of this information.
We're getting the gray screen.
Hold on one second. Yeah, I remember the same problem, right?
Yeah.
You're what?
And it's working? It's working as a visitor, so. I don't
Yeah, and
know
that's how
about
I
that.
did it over there. I didn't authenticate, I just went to the website. and I
There's a
just
problem if they can't authenticate here. I mean,
I agree. Moses will work on that.
Will we have authentication in the new budget?
we hope so.
You didn't make paper copies for other people, did you?
No.
Jody, take this.
Maybe next time.
Tim. Make me notes. Can we go? Yeah. Go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to present my 2021 school year budget this evening. On behalf of the elementary building, we are very appreciative of all the support of the board and central administration. This was my first year seeing a full budget through, so I was actually able to really keep the budget as it was. We are very fortunate of where our budget is. I'm just going to talk about just some line items that have increased or decreased by $500, and there's just a few of them. Stop me at any time if you have any questions. So line item number 11 has increased by $500 for our pre-K, and that is just for Super Kids material. There was not enough allocation last year there, so we were able to transfer money, so we just upped that for $500. Line 29 was an increase of $1,000 also for Super Kids material. Our first grade class this school year was very low, but next year, if in the anticipation, the kindergarten class is larger than the first grade class this year. So we've upped that just to support our Super Kids program to continue that. Line number 89, jump to 89,
Sure.
was an increase by 800,
Don't.
but I'm just increasing from line 89, from actual line 90, transferring to line 89. Line 95 is an increase by $1,500 for music and for YEMS Festival and NISMA to allow our students to actually have that experience in the elementary building also. So when they move on to the middle school and high school, they just have some more of that music experience with the arts.
Which line were you referring to there, please?
Line 95.
Line 95. Okay, very good, thanks.
You're welcome. And the last line that had an increase was monies reallocated from lines 120 to 121 into 119.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Again, I just want to thank everyone for all of their support. Without you and the support, we wouldn't be able to provide all of this for the children every day at Ellenville, and we are very appreciative to that.
Thank you very much. Does
Thank
anyone
you.
have any questions for Mrs. I tonight? Thanks.
Thank you.
So if you got the email regarding a board docs update earlier today, I was asked to provide some details on field trips. So the building principals provided to me details of the field trips that they've gone on or they are going on in 1920. So you'll actually see that in your board docs if you want to dive through the details. You don't have to tonight, but I was asked to provide that data. That is document 3.4, and it has all 3 buildings in it. Right now, we'll move on to 2.4 in board docs. Mr. Spinelli, the middle school budget.
Vince, just one moment, please. Could you take that field trip information and at some point in the next few days, move it like to the library so we don't have to go back through the meeting
certainly, I can do that.
to find it? Okay, so where are we, Jerry?
Yeah, Mr. Spinelli. Here it is.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me here to present the budget for the middle school for next year. Again, we thank you as well as the administration for all your support and help.
Here, you need it?
Thank you. I'd like to just highlight one line. If you take a look at line 85. Line 85 is a new line item in my budget, which is band, chorus, and music competitions. So in order to fully fund those, just to make sure that our students have the opportunity to go to those competitions and perform with other schools around and get rated and judged, we have built that into the budget. That is, for all intents and purposes, the only significant increase that I have in this year's budget, but I just want to also point out that you will see next year, at the end of next year, we will have to budget in the consumables for 6th grade science and social studies again. So that's a 3-year contract. So that would mean for the 2021-22 school year, we're going to need those consumables for that year. So at the end of next year, you're going to see a decent increase in 6th grade science and social studies for those consumables only. But we're going to take a look at a possibility of getting maybe even specific licenses so that we can print the materials that we need so that we don't, maybe we can reduce the cost a little bit. But other than that, I have no other real significant increases. The field trips are fully funded. And other than that, I'm ready to take any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Andre. Any questions?
Sure.
Iris?
Yeah, I'm totally in favor of more for band and chorus. But I'm curious, in the years past, what have we done for that? I mean, has it been done, or this is the first time we're
There
going to
was some
actually sing?
fundraising done in years past. There was me begging for money from other sources, you know,
I
that
get the
kind of thing.
idea. Yeah.
So
we're
so the other buildings have it already fully funded.
Yes.
So we have it fully funded now as well.
very good. Thank you, I'm glad.
Same question.
Iris, so you had the same question? I mean, Jody? you had the
Same question, I'm good.
John?
Bit of a dinosaur here, but I see nothing under textbooks. Are we still using textbooks in the middle school? Do we have enough textbooks?
Right now, we have all the textbooks that we need. No teachers have come to me requesting to look at other or new textbooks. A lot of my teachers use online materials or materials that they find their own, and they put together their course that way.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Spinelli, we spoke today. Could you tell the board about our conversation in reference to the materials that will be needed in the future for social studies and science?
Sure. I referenced those a couple of minutes ago, but I want you to also know that right now all materials that are needed for both social studies and science in grade 6 are there, as well as everything that we need for the New Living Environment course. So that's why on that line item, there was also a relatively significant decrease.
But in the future, you're going to be needing them.
Correct,
You
and
had
for
spoken
the
to
2021-22 school year.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Spinelli? Lisa?
Yes. Field trips are instructional, but at the same time, the music competitions are, I think the best way to compare them would be to sort of like sectional games, that sort of thing. So this is the culminating event for your band and choral groups. And it's something that, yeah, just a different budget line item. Mm-hmm.
Anybody else?
Field trip has a strict definition as an instructional, leaving the campus.
Yeah.
Anybody else? If not, thank you, Mr. Spinelli.
Thank you.
We'll move on to Board Docs 2.5, High School, with Mr. Pabon.
Is it working?
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to be here this evening to propose the 2021 school year budget. As you can see, the budget is almost identical to last year. The only increase is a slight increase, and that can be found in line items 156 and 157 for a grand total of $400. I want to thank you because of the proposed budget from the previous year. You know, we were able to house and put money in where we needed, and so therefore, as a result, we're carrying over a similar budget for the school year. Any questions? And thank you.
How are our SUPA classes? They got everything they need?
That's great. You know, again, I'm thanking the board, our administration for funding us. You know, our most recent super class was our forensics course, and we want to thank you for also being one of our guest presenters there. But again, it's the board. You know, you're supporting the vision and funding the vision, so we thank you for that.
Any board members for Mr. Pabon? Mr. Pabon, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to 2.7, Mr. Bina Medina, Curriculum and Instruction.
There isn't a tremendous amount to report this evening with regard to the 2021 budget for curriculum and instruction. There have been some decreases in certain line items, materials and supplies for private and parochial school students. We've had a decrease in enrollment at the Warsing Christian Academy, so that's reflected in that line 6. The decrease of $80,000, 59%, for professional development speaks to right-sizing the budget. This is more of what reflects our actual expenditures than projected expenditures. Overall, the change from 2019 to 2021 is $137,000. You know, take any questions you might have.
Thank you. John?
Angela, I see it looks like to me the biggest cuts are in our character education and stuff. How come that's going down so much? Or did I miss that?
It's not been fully utilized in the past. There have been times where the school buildings or the district as a whole has embarked on a system similar to PBIS or a character education initiative that would be funded on the district level, but that has not taken place in some time. So that just reflects the actual spending.
Lisa, does that fit in with the conversation we had today at all?
You know, I think that there are a couple of programs that we are looking at. We're looking at the ADL, No Place for Hate, in the middle school. But I think that we can utilize some of our Title I money also as far as parental engagement and other other grant funds that we have to do that. So this is, I believe this is the general fund
Correct.
Side of it. But we do have carryover, so I don't want to just keep this up if we can use grant funds also to utilize it. But just because this is going down, $6,000 does not mean it's going to inhibit our ability to implement any programs. We do have grant funds.
And then my other question goes to the professional development. That seems like a significant drop. Could you explain that a little more?
Our professional development, for the most part, is covered under our title grants.
Right.
So it's covered under Title II.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mrs. Hamer? If not, thank you.
So that concludes tonight's presentations for the budgets that were available tonight. Remember, Mr. Moyer is at a basketball game for the boys. He will be with us next week. Next week's board meeting is going to include the budget workshop. So while we all will be here at 7:30. There's going to be, the BOCES will be here with us. I'll be presenting the BOCES budget. Mr. Moyer will be presenting the athletics budget, and Dr. Fogarty will be presenting the special education budget for us.
So what are you going to be, I ran into Chuck Corey outside. Is that, you're going to be presenting something different than?
Right, so tonight, Dr. Corey, Dr. Schenka, and Ms. Dodd, they came and just talked about BOCES as a general, kind of the general services that they provide to us. But every time we present the BOCES budget, one of them, and next week we're lucky to have all three of them, are going to be in the audience to address any particular questions they have, as well as bring some students and the principals of their programs.
Thank you. You're good?
That's it, we're done.
That's it. Any questions for Mr. Napoli? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? No one? We're adjourned.